Well, hey guys, it is Sunday again, and I'm driving home on my way home from church. I wanted to just share some of the thoughts that I'd had today in the service. So today Jeremy preached on Nehemiah chapter 8, where Ezra gets up and he's reading from the book of the law. And the Israelites are standing there listening to it all day, and they're broken by hearing the book of the law, and they're feeling mournful over the way that they've behaved and how they've failed. And you would think that is the appropriate response, and in fact, in a lot of ways, it is the appropriate response to the revelation of that truth, that I have failed as a person, or we have failed as a people, and it's because of that God has removed His blessing from us, and yet the leaders said, no, don't mourn. Today is a special day, a day of joy. So put your mourning away, and instead be joyful, for the joy of the Lord is your strength. And you're kind of like, what? These are obviously these people did not, Ezra and Nehemiah did not grow up in the United States where people are supposed to be in touch with their feelings. We're not supposed to invalidate someone's feelings. How can you tell somebody that, no, you can't feel this way at this time, especially when they're feeling bad for the fact that they have sinned against God and their ancestors sinned against God. And so, you dig a little deeper and you find out, well, it's actually that particular day was supposed to be a day of rejoicing. It was a day that was marked on the calendar. It was a holiday, and the goal of that day was to rejoice in the Lord and to kind of get ready for a couple of the other festivals that were coming up. It was the Day of Trumpets. It was that particular day. And so God had commanded, no, on this day you will rejoice, and you will be joyful, and you will, because of, all the things God has done, so on and so forth. Okay? And so Nehemiah and Ezra and the leaders are saying, hey, no, this is what God's commanded. Like, you're feeling convicted, and you're feeling mournful about having sinned against God in the past, and that makes sense. However, God has another command that's ongoing right now, and that is to be joyful today. Okay? Today. Tomorrow, maybe morning will be appropriate, but today, on this particular day of the year, it's supposed to be a day of rejoicing. And so, if you really do feel bad for the way you behaved in the past, then the correct response to that is to obey right now. And to obey right now means to be joyful. You're like, whoa, hold on. This is how I legitimately feel, God. Right? Are you invalidating my feelings? Like, God, I feel sad about what I've done. And in some sense, it's not that God is invalidating their feelings. It's that He is overriding their feelings. He's saying, I understand that you might feel this way, but I have commanded you to feel this way. So that kind of begs the question, well, who the heck do you think you are to tell me how to feel? I mean, it seems very anti-American, very anti, all the things that we've learned about psychology. But that really strikes to the heart of one of the questions that I think a lot of us, especially Americans, struggle with about God. Who do you think you are to blah? Like, we point something out in Scripture that seems unfair or not right or whatever, and we say, God, who are you to do this? Like, that's not fair. Like, when, I think the guy's name was Uzzah, and he reached up to keep the Ark of the Covenant from falling over. Like, that seems like a good thing to do. And God destroyed him for touching the Ark. Like, but God, He was trying to help you. But God's like, I said don't touch the Ark. Maybe God's hand would have come in the miraculous. Who knows? But He said, don't do it. And Uzzah did it. Even though he had the best intentions, And you're like, well, God, who are you? And that's the problem. We don't ask, we should ask, with fear and trepidation, God, who are you? Because he answers that question. He answered it in Job chapter 38 when he says to Job, where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Where were you when I created light? Do you know where light comes from? Do you know where darkness goes? He answers that question very, very clearly, that God is fundamentally different from us and fundamentally above us. That's hard for us as Americans to think, where we think everybody is my peer, right? God is not my peer. God is my master. And if he commands even my emotions, I must obey. And I have to submit to him even in the way that I feel. Okay? Now that's the absolute. But I also want to take it a little bit further because I have kids. And I understand that I have a different perspective than my children do. And often my children feel in ways that are very inappropriate if they just had a clearer perspective. But I also understand they're just children, and their perspective is, maybe 5 minutes wide or 10 minutes wide, and they feel like it's going to be the end of the world because they have to go to bed. But I understand that 10 hours from now, they're going to be very glad that they went to bed. 10 hours from now, they're going to be, having breakfast, and they're going to feel refreshed, and they're going to be ready for a day. But right now, it's just the end of the world because I can't play. I want to continue to play, or I want to do whatever. But I don't want to go to my room and go to bed. And I think that is where God's really coming from. Yes, in an absolute sense, he has the power, he has every right to tell me that if things are bad, I should feel like they're good, even if they are legitimately and completely and totally bad. If that's what he tells me, I should feel like they're good. Okay? And he has every right to do that. Hold on, let me make sure I don't run over a motorcycle here. All right. But he doesn't just exercise that authority over us willy-nilly. No, he is saying, he is exercising it on our behalf because of his great perspective. And so, just like I tell my kids, like, no, I understand that you feel bad, but you'll be happier if you choose to do this with a good attitude. If you choose, I know you don't like it, but if you choose to try to like it, if you choose, and if you submit to me in this way and try to obey in this way, then you'll go to bed and you'll have a good attitude about it. You'll wake up refreshed, and I understand that this is what's best for you, even though it feels wrong right now. We're going through, my family and I are going through a difficult situation where we've had to say goodbye to a couple of children who we were going to adopt, who were doing amazing in our care, and who have been since split up by the court and sent to different homes where they're separated from all their siblings, and where one of them in particular is not receiving the special care that he needs in order to be successful, as a in his life. We are going through that, and that is bad. I mean, I can objectively look at that and say that is bad. But all through this, God has said, I want you to trust me. I want you to feel peace. When everything in me says there's turmoil in this situation, we have all these siblings, and none of them are in the same home. None of them hardly get to see each other. All this stuff is messed up, and if you just put them here with us, everything would be okay. But God is not doing that. But maybe it's bedtime, and God sees 10 hours in the future and understands that on the other end of this, that there will be something better. I know there have certainly been situations in my life that weren't good, but that God used for good. So maybe that's what God's seeing here, or God's doing here. I don't know. But it's my job to trust him. I mean, maybe more than anything else, God asks us to trust him. And if he says, you should feel happy right now, even though the whole world is burning down and feels like it's messed up, if God says I should be happy right now, or I should be sad right now, or I should be, at peace right now, or whatever he's saying, I should trust my faith in God. I should trust Him and what He's saying over even when I'm experiencing and what I'm perceiving with my senses, because I can only perceive what's going on right here, right now, and I only have my limited knowledge of the past. But He has perfect knowledge of past, present, and future. And because I believe that He's for me, that's important. Because I believe God is for me, I know that what He is asking me to do and how He is asking me to feel is actually both good for me and good for the world. But that's a big ask. That's a big ask to say, I understand that you feel this way, but I'm asking you to feel another way. And that was Jeremy's point today, is that people who take ownership of the mission, of the Great Commission, people that truly take ownership of that, submit even their own feelings, which seems to be the most private, most personal part of myself, to submit even that to the truth, to what God says in a specific situation. That even what is most personal, we hand over to God and we trust Him with that. But when we do that, when I submit my feelings to God, obeying is so much easier, because I've obeyed with my feelings. Now it's easier to obey because maybe I don't quite feel that way yet, but I understand I should feel that way, and so I understand what I should be doing to obey. So some of these other things that are kind of downstream that we might be struggling with become easier. The way that I eat, for instance. I understand that I should be a good steward of what God's given me, and that but I want to eat chocolate checks at 10 o'clock at night. That's what I want. And God's saying, no, you feel like you want that, but I want you to feel differently. I want you to feel like you can worship me by not eating that chocolate. Now, that's a silly thing, but it's a real thing. It's a real thing. And I'm like, and part of me wants to be like, well, that's a silly thing. And God's like, well, maybe it is a silly thing, but it's what I asked you to do. And so I submit even my feelings, and I kind of advance I'm fighting over here now. I'm fighting over here where it's like I'm focusing on what I should be feeling, and the action, well, of course I'm not gonna eat the checks. I'm just working on how I feel about it. So it's a little bit easier to obey in that situation. And then I also want to, though, admit the reality of the fact that while God is able to demand this of me because He's God and I should trust Him and He has perfect knowledge, that does not give me the right to demand it of other people and to invalidate their feelings, because those feelings are real to them. They might not be right, but who knows? They might be right. I can't be sure because I'm not God, right? And let me tell you where I fail in this area, and that's with my kids, where I try to hold them to a standard that I could have never met, and I certainly did not meet when I was 10 or 12 or 14 years old. And I say, listen, this is how you should be feeling. This is how, what you're saying and that's wrong. And I'm trying to hold them to a particular standard. And I listen to them, but then I say, well, yeah, but what's God? And those things are good, but I need to make sure that I am validating how they feel. I understand you feel this way. Okay, now let's look at what God says and allow God to work on them in that way. Okay, but for me as a parent, sometimes that's something that God needs to do, and maybe I need to just share with them, hey, let me share with you how I struggled in this way when I was younger, and maybe how I didn't go so well, and maybe I could just share, if you don't want this result, then maybe you shouldn't do this because this is what I did. But I know, and I think there's a temptation here for us to, if we feel like we get this, to see in others where they're failing in this way, and where, where what they are feeling is wrong. Somebody who's lost a loved one might say, well, listen, that loved one's in a better place. You should feel joy. Well, that's great. Why don't you leave that to God, okay? And instead, weep with those who weep, and celebrate with those who celebrate, and leave the feeling invalidations to God, because He does it a little bit better. And I'm going to try to do that myself, because I can certainly fail in that way. So, well, listen, great message this morning, and I want to encourage everybody to ask yourself, where are the ways that I'm feeling wrong? Where are my feelings wrong? The person that I don't want to forgive, the person that I don't want to pray for, the person that I need to reach out to, or the ways that I have, I might be feeling about myself, where I might think that I'm more important than I am, or maybe I think that I'm less important than I am. Where are my feelings? Even though my feelings are real, where are they wrong? Okay, because just because something's real doesn't make it right. And when we at least admit the wrongness of our feelings, and we step into, and I feel like that's an admission that needs to not just happen. I mean, first and foremost, it needs to happen privately, but I feel like it really needs to happen in a trusting community with a few friends that you really trust, and who are sort of iron sharpening iron friends. I think that when we start to at least admit, I kind of like the guy that said, I believe, Lord, help my unbelief. That type of statement. I know I should forgive, Lord, so help my unforgiveness. Or I know I should be humble, Lord, so help my pride. And we start to work in those ways. And at least admitting it, I feel like that's at least the first step towards getting better. So, well, listen, I'm pulling into the driveway now. I've probably been talking your ear off much too long. So if you've made it to this point, I wish there was some sort of prize that I could give you, but I can't. I can simply say thank you for humoring me and listening to me for this long. Have a great week, and I just pray that your Sunday is a fruitful and wonderful one.